let's go ahead and get started with 100 days of vibe coding. We're going to make one program a day for the next 100 days. So at the end, we're going to have 100 programs. They're going to be very simple, and they're all going to be games. And we're going to start with, well, let's see what Copilot tells us to start with. For this vibe coding series, I'm going to use GitHub Copilot, and specifically today at least, I'm going to use it. First, I'm going to use it in Ask mode with Claude 3.7 Sonnet. I may shift things up here and there throughout the 100 days. I think I'm going to stick with GitHub Copilot. Maybe I'll switch to Cursor and some other things, try some other things out. But for now, my plan is 100 days, GitHub Copilot inside VS Code, mostly in agent mode, except when we're just trying to ask some questions. So first, I'm just going to ask the question. What is a good, easy game to make with JavaScript? What's a good, easy game to make with JavaScript? So we got rock, paper, scissors, memory card game, tic-tac-toe, quiz game, snake game, whack-a-mole, simple platformer, hangman, breakout, pong. Let's go with rock, paper, scissors. Let's go with its first suggestion. So I'm going to switch it over to agent mode. I'm going to say, let's make a rock, paper, scissors game in JavaScript. And we're just going to keep it general and easy like that. As we go through these 100 days, I'll mention little tips and tricks and things that I've come up with along the way, especially as you get into bigger projects where you're going to want to do things like handling errors and logging a bunch and building some unit tests and all that. And there's a couple of other kind of vibe coding specific things that I typically like to do, like have it create a README and a statement of work, an SOW, which will just help kind of keep it on track, because sometimes your vibe coding agents can go to pretty crazy places after a while. We'll see. Hopefully with rock, paper, scissors, we won't have to go into too much detail. We can keep it pretty simple. Let's see what happens. So it's already getting to work here. All right. We can already see the code that it's writing up here for HTML and CSS. All right, still working on the CSS, it seems like. And then I'm assuming after this, it'll start making the JavaScript. Yep, here we go. Starting to write that JavaScript pretty quickly. I have created a complete rock, paper, scissors game for your 100 days of code. Blah, blah, blah. All right. We're not going to read through all that right now. First, what we're going to do before we click keep or anything like that, we're going to ask it in case we didn't know, right? I know that, for instance, I could just open up the index.html over in my web browser, but first we're going to ask it, how do I run this? And since I'm on the script.js thing, it's using script.js as a context, but it's not really relevant for this. All right. Okay, interesting. So it's telling me a command that I can run to make the program open up in a web browser. So I'm going to click continue to have it do that. And there it is. Boom. Let's see how well it works here. I'm going to do paper. Scissors. Computer wins. Then I'll do rock. Okay, rock. Tie game. Scissors. I win. So on. It's working perfectly. Now, I could just call it quits here. It's been like, whatever, a few minutes or something. I have no idea. You can stop watching now, of course. And that's just an idea of how quickly you can get something simple up and running with vibe coding, right? All the code is really there. And now if you wanted to, let's say you wanted to practice your coding, you could stop using GitHub Copilot here and just start digging in, fiddling around with stuff, which is not a bad idea for new programmers. If you're just getting started, doing something like this, even this exact example, would be a great way to have this all generated, and then just start changing little things here and there and see what happens. But first, what I'm going to do before I do anything next is click this keep button down here. All right, that just means that I want to keep or save everything that the Copilot just did for me. Now, what I want to do next is maybe ask it to do a couple of extra things for me. The reason I'm clicking keep is that if it tries to do those other things and messes things up somehow, and then I want to undo it, there's the undo button, which is usually next to the keep button, and that would undo everything if I hadn't already kept this. So now whatever I do next, if it messes up, I can undo it and be right back here, which is great. Let's see, what's a good thing we could add to this would be, let's do this. Can you add fancy little particle confetti effects if I win? So in other words, if I win, I want to see some kind of like confetti explosion thing happen. Let's see. I'll add some fancy confetti particle effects that will display when you win, blah, blah, blah. So it's going to edit the script.js. When it's editing something that already exists, you can click on the file to see the comparison between the two, how it was before, how it is now. Okay, so right now it was just looking in script.js. Now it's updating index.html. Yep. So it's going to make some changes to each of these files in order to give us that confetti effect. I'm showing you everything in real time just to give you a feel for how this actually goes, right? If I was to just edit things up and make it nice and compact, it would give you the illusion that this stuff is way faster than it really is. I want you to actually see what the VibeCoding experience is like in this particular context, right? There's a lot of different ways to do VibeCoding. I think this is just a good way to get started and to use for this 100 days of coding. All right, we can see that it's making the edits to the JavaScript. And now we should be pretty much ready. Yep. To try it out, simply reload your game to play around. All right, let's see. So reload. Let's see what happens. Computer wins. Let's try this again. Let's try paper. Computer wins. Scissors. Computer wins. Paper. Computer wins. Come on, I want to win. It's a tie. You win. And there's the confetti coming down. Woohoo! All right. Not bad, not bad. I like that. We'll keep it. So I'm going to click keep. And let's see. I wonder what else could we do. I think that's probably pretty good for now. I'll give you a couple tips when using an agent like this, right? Some sort of coding agent. Even though it's a little bit overkill for this particular example, I'll say a good thing to have is a README. Can you create a README for this project? And a README is just going to tell you the basic overview of what the program is, what it does, how to use it, and that's just always good to have. You'll notice, like, for instance, maybe we'll go ahead and I'll walk you through putting this on GitHub. I'll put it on GitHub, and then you can fiddle around with it yourself. I think that's a good idea, actually. All right, so it's creating a README. All right, good, good. I'm going to pause this just for a second because I have an interruption happening in my real life, so hang on. All right, I think we have picked back up here, hopefully. So we created a README. A README is good to have. It gives you an overview of what the basic project is. And it's particularly useful when you're going to collaborate with other people. But even for yourself, let's say I wanted to pick this back up months down the road, years down the road, and I only had code to look at and, a program to play around with. It might not be that helpful, but if I had a README that really laid things out clearly, that would be helpful. And it looks like Copilot made a nice README here. So now what I want to do, let's keep that. We want to create a Git repository for this, or a GitHub repo. Let's go ahead and just ask it how I could do that. How could I implement version control? That's what GitHub is used for. Git is used for this project. To implement version control for your project, I hope you set up Git, which is blah, 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 blah. All right, so it's going to have us navigate into our directory where we already are, which is fine, and then initialize a Git repository. I'm not going to lead you through the process of installing Git and all that. That's kind of outside the scope of this project. But if that's something that a bunch of you comment on wanting a video for, I'll certainly put out a video on that. But there are lots of other videos that cover that. All right, so this did go ahead and initialize a Git repository here. And then it's adding a git ignore file, which is great. Now, we're not going to have anything in this project that Git ignores. That just means when it goes to sync stuff up with GitHub, it's not going to sync stuff over that doesn't need to be synced. But in our case, everything here needs to be synced over. See, I hate how it cuts off sometimes. That's also because I zoomed in and stuff. Okay, go ahead. That's just adding everything to this Git repository. Did I say? Okay. And it may even lead us through the process of, let me click keep here, maybe that'll help us. Creating initial commit, all right. So that's saying, basically the way this works is it's saying, first what we did was we identified our current directory, our current folder as a place that we're going to use for a Git repository. Then it's saying, these are all the files we want in our Git repository. And now we're saying, okay, we actually want to commit these files to the Git repository. Now that we've committed them to the Git repository, it's telling us a whole bunch of different things that we can do in Git. We're not going to go through all that process right now, like I mentioned, but I will say I want to go ahead and create I want to go ahead and sync this up with my GitHub page, but I don't currently have this repo set up there. What do I do next? Cool. Yep, this is great. So it's leading us through this whole process. And I'm doing all of this so that I can upload, sync this code up over with GitHub and then include the link in my description to this video. All right, so this is step 2. First, we want to do step 1, create a GitHub repository. So I'm going to click this. I'm already logged into GitHub. And now we're going to do a new repository, and we're going to call it, what did we call this? Day 1. All right. And this is a rock, paper, scissors game. Public, we're not going to click to add a README here because then it'll just kind of create a new one, but we already have one in our project. So we're going to create repository. And now, name, blah, 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 add an optional description like, yeah. Did that. All right, so here, this is like something to keep in mind when you're using the agent mode in GitHub Copilot, is if I were to click continue here, it's going to try to run this. And the problem it's going to run into is here. This your username / repo name is a placeholder. It's not actually what it needs to run. So we need to edit that, which, as you can see right here, we can do that. So Christian Golden / day 1. Get. Continue. So it does, to really get the most out of GitHub Copilot or any agentic AI for coding, for VibeCoding, you do have to know some basics. Although, if I was to try to do that, it would probably instruct me like, hey, you were supposed to change this. But now it's telling us our next thing to do. Looks like that worked. And now I think, be able to refresh this. Yep. Okay. And now the game's up on GitHub. So I'm going to copy and paste this repository to the description of this video, and you can feel free to play around with it. Cool. Properly version controlled and publicly accessible. Okay. If you're watching this at a later date, I may in the future change things up, although I'll probably still keep this active. I'll probably end up adding another GitHub link, because this will probably most properly, all these 100 days projects will probably be best nested within one repo, because having 100 repos for a project like this is just kind of silly. But for now, that's enough. So that was the first day of 100 days VibeCoding, making little games in JavaScript with Visual Studio Code's GitHub Copilot in agent mode mostly, using Claude 3.7 Sonnet. Although if you use other agents, the experience is going to be relatively similar. I find 3.7 Sonnet to be kind of the best for what I prefer. If you like this, please like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff, and please, by all means, play around with this project. And you can fork this GitHub repo. You can do all sorts of things if you want. Thanks so much for watching, and happy coding.